Difficulties were compounded when, in the last days of May and the early part of June 1945, the invading forces found themselves fighting the weather as well as the enemy. Steady and heavy rains severed land communications on Okinawa, and the motorized 10th Army was bogged down in the mud. Only through the utmost use of all available resources, energetic improvisation, and resort to water and air transportation was it possible to keep the supplies rolling in to the appointed place in approximately the desired quantities and in time to defeat the enemy. As soon as the hilly terrain behind the Hagushi beaches was overrun by American troops, it became the scene of feverish activity. Roads were widened and improved, supply dumps established, anti-aircraft guns emplaced, and hundreds of military installations constructed. Tent settlements sprang up everywhere, and the dark green of pyramidal and squad tents became as commonplace a feature of the landscape as the Okinawan tomb. Coral was chopped away from hills and laid on the roads and airfields. Bumper-to-bumper traffic raised clouds of dust on the main thoroughfares in dry weather and splattered along through deep mud in wet. Telephone service soon linked all Army and Navy installations, and Signal Corps troops also established an elaborate radio communication net and service to American bases in the rear. There were 170,000 Americans on the island a month after the landings, and about 245,000 on Okinawa and neighboring islands at the end of June. Supply operations. Bringing the supplies ashore. Unloading of the assault shipping was nearly completed by 16 April, ahead of schedule. Further progress was satisfactory through 6 May. Thereafter, however, the discharge of supplies failed to keep pace with unloading plans. Between 7 May and 15 June, tonnage unloaded was more than 200,000 measurement tons behind schedule. However, this was largely offset by the earlier achievements, and the cumulative effect was not evident until 5 June. The chief difficulty was the failure to capture the port of Naha with its harbor and dock facilities as early as planned. Unloading continued for the most part over the reef and beaches in the Hagushi area long after it was expected that they would have been abandoned in favor of rehabilitated port facilities. High winds, heavy rains, frequent air raids, and equipment shortages all contributed to the delays and the cumulative deficiencies. Particularly onerous was the necessity of selective discharge of cargo to bring ashore critical items of supply. Sometimes dock gangs had to be pulled off ships prior to unloading and placed on hot ships as emergencies developed. In the face of all these difficulties, more than 2 million measurement tons of cargo were unloaded on Okinawa from 1 April to 30 June, an average of some 22,200 tons a day. To supplement the tonnage unloaded at the Hagushi beaches, 10th Army developed a number of unloading points at other places along the coasts of Okinawa. Such points were opened between 5 and 9 April in northern Okinawa for close support of 3rd Amphibious Corps in its rapid advance northward during the early stages of the operation. After the Marines moved south to take part in the drive against the main enemy position, work was rushed to develop unloading facilities at Monumental on the west coast. By 25 May, LCTs were being unloaded at a temporary sand causeway. At the same time, temporary unloading points were developed on the coast between Monumental and Naha in further support of the 3rd Corps. On 7 June, the port of Naha was opened for the use of LCTs, and the rehabilitation of harbor and dock facilities was begun. It was planned that by the end of June, the bulk of West Coast tonnage would be unloaded at Naha and that the Hagushi beaches would gradually be abandoned. Unloading on the east coast of Okinawa began in the middle of April, and use was successively made of beaches at Chimu Bay, Ishikawa, Kachin Peninsula, Awase, and Kuba. Unabridged was captured on 22 May, and supplies were unloaded there on 1 June. A pontoon pier was started there for LSTs and smaller craft a week later and was completed on 12 June. In the last stages of the campaign, an emergency unloading point was opened at Minatoga on the southeast coast on 9 June and was operated for 2 weeks. By 30 June 1945, about 20% of all tonnage unloaded on Okinawa had been brought ashore at points other than the Hagushi beaches, amounting to nearly 400,000 measurement tons of cargo. In one respect, however, the use of unscheduled supply points contributed to the delays of unloading.